Whether it's the local fire department or the neighborhood food pantry, there's this quiet crisis happening all across America. The number of people putting their hands up to help, well, it's dropping fast. And it's happening pretty much everywhere. It really feels like something fundamental has changed in our communities. So let's get into it and figure out what's really going on. When we see those empty slots at a charity drive or hear that emergency services are short-staffed, it's so easy to jump to one conclusion, to ask that one simple, kind of nagging question. Have people just stopped caring? Is this whole thing just a story about us losing our compassion? And that idea, that apathy is the real culprit here, has become a super popular myth. I mean, it's the simplest explanation, right? That we've all just gotten too busy, too selfish, or too disconnected to bother helping each other out. But the research we're looking at today suggests that popular theory might be completely off base. And this right here completely reframes the whole problem. The myth says people just don't care anymore. But the reality? The research says the system we use for volunteering is just outdated. It's not a crisis of compassion, it's a crisis of structure. The desire to help is absolutely still there, but the ways to actually do it are broken. Okay, so if it's not apathy, then what are the real reasons for this decline? We're about to break down the core argument here, which points to a whole series of systemic hurdles that are getting in the way of modern-day altruism. The key concept we need to understand is something called structural friction. Just think of it as all the gunk in the system that makes it harder for good people to do good things. It's the economic pressures, the endless paperwork, the rigid old-school rules that stop someone who genuinely wants to lend a hand. And this structural friction isn't just one thing. It's more like a perfect storm. The source material points to three major culprits that have really taken hold in the last few decades: a growing lack of time, a much heavier administrative burden, and, you guessed it, a widespread decline in trust. Let's dig into each one. First up, time scarcity. I mean, this one's a big one. For a long time, many households had one person with more flexible time for community stuff. But today, dual-income households are pretty much the standard. And that extra pool of free time has just vanished. Volunteering now has a really high opportunity cost for most working adults. Second, the administrative burden. Oh man. Volunteering used to be so simple. Now, even for the most basic roles, you might face background checks, compliance training, and just mountains of paperwork. When trying to help out feels more like an unpaid bureaucratic job, you can see how that initial spark of wanting to help just gets snuffed out. And the third friction is a doozy: declining institutional trust. Here's the thing. People haven't lost faith in the causes, like helping the homeless or disaster relief, but they have grown pretty skeptical of the large organizations that lead the charge. And that skepticism leads people to pull back, not from the desire to help, but from the formal groups that offer it. So get this, all these structural problems are hitting us at the exact same time as a massive generational shift. Younger generations have totally different motivations and needs, and the old ways of doing things just weren't built for them. You can really see the disconnect here. Gen X, they value autonomy, they want specific projects. Millennials are driven by the mission, but they need flexibility. They prefer one-off service that also helps build their skills. And Gen Z, they demand authenticity and want to see a visible impact, often in the short term. A one-size-fits-all, join-for-life model just doesn't work for any of them anymore. So here's the crucial point. We can't turn back the clock. Instead, we have to rebuild for the future. And the good news is, our source material doesn't just point out the problems, it actually offers a clear, evidence-based playbook for how organizations can adapt and, actually thrive. This modern playbook has 5 key steps. First, lead with a clear, powerful mission, because that's what gets people excited. Second, if the burden or risk is high, you've got to compensate for it, maybe with stipends to acknowledge their time is valuable. Third, respect their skills. Treat volunteers like real contributors, not just free labor. Fourth, give them something back, like training or credentials they can use in their careers. And finally, design for flexibility, make it easy for people to jump in, take a break, and come back again. This quote from the source just nails the entire argument. The problem isn't a lack of human goodness. That fundamental desire we all have to help our communities is still there. The real challenge is for our institutions, our fire departments, our charities, our nonprofits, to evolve and create new ways for that desire to be put into action. So that leaves us with a final, really important question to think about. It's not about how we can convince people to care again. They already do. The real question is,
How can our communities, our organizations, and maybe even each of us evolve to finally meet this deep and very real desire to serve?